Okay, let's go on to part 6, perception, positioning, and self-image in selling. Here is one of the great breakthroughs in selling. This chapter can often be, and often is in my estimation, the most important part of this seminar, especially in dealing with selling, because as Theodore Levitt said, all sales for the rest of our lives are relationship sales. All selling is relationship selling. Your ability to understand the dynamics of relationships in selling will make you one of the top people of your field. So one things we know, number one, is relationships often continue after the sale. Relationships often continue after the sale. Let me give you a quick explanation. We used to have what is called a single call sale. 99% of all sales books are written around the single call sale. The single call sale was based on the AIDA model, AIDA, which stood for attention, interest, desire, action. You said or did something to arouse the person's attention. You aroused their interest by explaining the features. You aroused the desire by explaining the benefits that derive from those features. And you got them to take action. The single call sale, the simple sale, was also one call, one decision maker, one decision, in, out, thank you, wham, bam, in and out, hit and run, lock and load, touch and go, very quick. And you never had to see the person again. That was just the way the simple sale worked. Many people still attempt simple sales selling when we moved into a new world called complex selling. And complex selling is where you have to see the customer several times to make a single sale. Customers in this format are far more valuable and expensive, and so each call is part of a process that moves you closer to the sale. And then once the sale takes place, the sale goes on after the sale. In other words, it's not over. In fact, salespeople say that they've closed a sale, but as far as the customer is concerned, we've begun a relationship. Professionals now realize that we don't close a sale, we simply officially begin a sales relationship. This is called complex selling. In complex selling, there's multiple calls, and the word is multiple. There's multiple calls, there's multiple decisions that have to be made, smaller decisions, and there's multiple decision makers, any one of which can foul up the sale, as you know. And then the sale goes on afterwards. One of the things that we know is that the relationship is extremely important at the beginning of the multiple call sale, and then it goes underground, almost like an underground river, and then it emerges again later at the time of making a purchase decision, and is usually the critical factor. It is first of all established, and then it's given, and then it becomes critical. And so when a person says, no, I don't think I'll buy it, and they are qualified and they need it, what they're saying is, I don't think I will get into this buying relationship with you. And in the final analysis, this becomes the most important thing in the large sale because the sale goes on. If you buy a newspaper, it doesn't matter whether you like the person or not because you never have to see them again. If you buy something that's complicated and that requires follow-up service and so on, then it makes a lot of difference. So number 2, the decision to buy your products or services in most cases means the decision to enter into a long-term relationship. The decision to enter into a long-term relationship simply means a business marriage. Up to now we've been dating because that's all the various calls have represented, and now you want to get married. You want to go away for the weekend. You want to get married, buy a home, settle down, have kids. And there's an awful lot of people who are in relationships, but when they look at them hard and fast, they're not deep enough in them that they want to get married and live with this person for life. And what you're doing is you are asking the person to enter into a business marriage. And in a marriage, there are several factors that come in. Number 1, in the customer's mind, is the whole issue of dependency. You see, up to now, I can take you or leave you. But if I decide to go ahead, now I'm dependent on you to deliver. I'm dependent upon you to come through on your promises. I'm dependent upon you to take care of me. And quite honestly, I've been burned countless times by other customers or other suppliers, and I don't know if I feel secure depending on you in this relationship. Has anybody here ever bought something and turned out it was so hard to get it serviced or repaired you wish you never bought it at all? Every customer you talk to has had 100 experiences like that, and they don't want it to happen again. So therefore, you are proposing a business marriage. In proposing a business marriage, your whole approach to the sale from the very beginning must be different than if you're just going to go in, make the sale, and leave. Number 3 is the customer wants a relationship first. Here's a question for you. Is your product or service available anywhere else? Can a person buy it from you, buy it from somewhere else, or not even buy it at all?
Yes.
Of course. So therefore, the product or service is not the issue. It is not as if you have an exclusive product or service like a remedy for an incurable illness that only you have that the person must have. What you have is a product that's available elsewhere at different prices, in different quantities and qualities, etc., etc., etc. So the customer now has the product as a given. The product's a given. There it is. Now I have to decide whether it's you I want to get it from. And that is why from the very first contact and throughout the sales relationship, you must be alert to this dynamic. The customer wants a relationship first. We have what is called in selling and in personal relationships the law of indirect effort. Now, the law of indirect effort says that you get almost everything in your relationships with others indirectly rather than directly. If you want to have a friend, you have to be a friend. If you want to have people respect you, you have to respect them. If you want people to like you, you have to like them. If you want people to be impressed by you, you have to be impressed by them. The law of indirect effort. In selling, we say, here's you, and here's the sale. Now, and here's the relationship. I call this one bank in the corner pocket. If you aim directly at the sale, oblivious to the relationship, it's very unlikely the sale will take place unless the customer is desperate. However, if you focus on the relationship like one bank, the sale will usually take care of itself. Here's a great rule. If this customer likes you, the details will not get in the way of a sale. If the customer doesn't like you, the details will trip you up every step of the way. Liking is one of the most powerful of all influence triggers in selling. If the customer genuinely likes you, they tend to see your product or service as better than it is and more worth what you're charging than if they don't like you. If they don't like you, your product or service is much more questionable and appears to be overpriced. Liking distorts like a lens. It distorts the way we see the product, the service, and the salesperson. So you must focus on the relationship first. Remember we said rapport, problem, solution. You must establish rapport before you go to identifying the problem. You must build a bridge. Number 4 is, because of product service complexity, the relationship is actually more important than the product or service. Because I don't know what is inside your box. In fact, your job and my job is the sale of promises. You are just like the old priests used to go through the streets of medieval Europe, and they would sell indulgences. An indulgence was basically a ticket to go to heaven when you died. And the wealthy were forced to pay enormous amounts of money for indulgences. The poor were forced to pay whatever they could for indulgences. And priests basically ran their parishes by selling indulgences, tickets to heaven. That's what made Martin Luther so mad. He said, this is dreadful. This is not in the Bible. This is not in Christianity, and so on. And so he began the Reformation with his edicts on the church in Worms. The point is that you and I go out and we sell promises. And what we say is, you give me a check which I can take down and cash, and I'll give you a promise. The promise will be that the product or service that I promise you will be delivered, it will work, it will be serviced, I will back it up, and you will even see me again. We will respond to your phone calls. We will carry out our guarantees and warranties under the contract. In other words, it's all promises. Do you know how hard it is to talk people out of their money on any basis, much less in exchange for promises? So you have one of the toughest jobs in America. You're out there selling promises in exchange for money. Therefore, the person has to be very confident in you that what you say is true. Because if what you say is true, I want the benefits that your product or service represents. I, the customer, I just have to be sure that I'm going to get them, and that hangs on my feeling about you. Every one of us has made a wrong decision. We have trusted in a person, and turned out we had misplaced our trust. Have you had that? Everybody's been burned that way. So remember, the customer wants the relationship first, and if you're smart enough to focus on the relationship, I'll give you some words to use. There's several words that you can use, but remember, don't ever expect the customer to figure things out for themselves. Are people busy or just hanging around? Are good customers busier than non-customers? Of course. They have 1,000 things in their mind. What does that mean? It means don't expect them to figure out stuff through osmosis. Women will often say to a man, "Tell me what you're feeling." And he'll say, "Nothing." And she'll say, "No, you're not being honest with me. Tell me what you're really feeling." Well, ladies, I have news for you. Men's inner lives are very simple. We're not thinking about anything. We're thinking about whether or not you're blocking the television. But we're not thinking about anything. Women's inner lives are very rich. Women's inner lives are far more sensitive and aware of countless things. A man and a woman can meet in a social gathering with others, and afterwards she can give the most incredible recounting of all the dynamics going on amongst the other people. He didn't see a damn thing. It's because women have a sensitivity in relationships that is uncanny. I mean, it is amazing. And it's in relationships, in business relationships, often we have a feeling that the customer should figure these things out. I mean, the customer should know from the way I am that this is the way I feel and so on. But you must never surmise that. It'd be the same as if a woman said, "You don't have to tell me you love me anymore. You told me once when we got married. That's fine. I know it from now on." Try getting away with that. In the age of Lorena Bobbitt, gentlemen, I would suggest... And a total acquittal, you see. It was not, a minor sentence. It was an acquittal. Not good. The point is this, is that the way that you tell your customers that you consider a relationship to be important is you tell them that you consider the relationship to be important. And how do you tell people you love them? They'll tell you with words. And follow up the words with actions, but start off with the words. Let's get on with the words first, okay? Use the words. And when you sell it to your customer, my philosophy is that I want to enter into a long-term relationship with you. I want to be your supplier in this area for as long as you use these products or services. And this is my company's philosophy as well, and we will do whatever it takes within reason to establish a long-term relationship with you and to make it work. If you tell a customer that, which is the truth, this is what you believe, and the competitor does not, who do you think has the edge in that sale? Of course you do. Because I would much rather take a person who may not have the better product, but who's totally committed to a relationship with me, to a long-term relationship, than someone else who may have a better product, but as far as they're concerned, it's a matter of indifference. Deming said the most important movement in business today is to single supplier relationships. It's not to put out bids and get half a dozen bids and pick the best bid every time you buy something, but to enter into long-term relationships with our suppliers and deal only with them and establish a very high quality of awareness and knowledge with a single supplier so they work with us to help us get the very best. Some companies are now actually putting a full-time person in the premises of their major customers who just works there and lives there and works with the customers all the time to make sure that their needs are handled well, that the relationship is taken good care of. So think in terms of the relationship and tell them you consider the relationship to be important, and you will do anything within reason to maintain a high-quality relationship. And when you say the relationship is important, if a person is really important to you and they call you, what do? You call them right back. And you get them on an answering machine and they buzz you and page you and you call them back from overseas. In other words, act like the relationship is important. Once you've said it, okay, now you've said it, now engage in the behaviors that tell me that you really meant it. I accepted that what you said was true, now engage in the behaviors. So, the key reasons for buying, based on our interviews with thousands of customers, why did you buy this rather than that? Or from him or her rather than from him or her, this is what they say. The key reasons for buying are, first of all, reputation. Reputation is the number one reason why people buy. What is the major sales promotional device in America? It causes more sales than anything else. Word of mouth it is. Word of mouth is number one. Theodore Levitt says the company's most valuable asset is its reputation. It's how it is known to its customers. It's its word of mouth. It's what people say about it. So therefore, don't be afraid to emphasize your reputation. We'll come back to that in a minute. Services are important. Delivery, reliability, responsiveness, and the quality of interactions over time. So therefore, it is not just one meeting, but it is the average quality of the interactions that you have with a customer over time. Is every interaction with you a good one? Is it a positive one? Are you pleasant, cheerful, responsive? You get back as quickly as you say you will? Do you fulfill your promises and commitments? Over time, the relationship is important. One of the studies, and I paid about $300,000 for sales research over the last few years. I've paid a fortune for this. It breaks my heart. But I still have stuff that I've bought that I could do courses on that would knock your eyes out in terms of why people buy and how, and really how to sell to people of all ages, educations, income levels, positions in the hierarchy, and so on, how each person has a different psychographic profile with a hot button that you can push to cause a sale to take place. I know neat stuff. But here's one of the things that I did learn, is that there's a principle in professional selling called relationship consistency. And what it is that however you are the first time you meet the customer, you are always that way. If you dress properly the first time, you always dress properly. If you're punctual, you're always punctual. If you're friendly, cheerful, and well-prepared, you're always friendly, cheerful, and well-prepared. In other words, you are consistent over time. This is a major credibility factor on the part of the customer, is that you're an absolutely reliable quantity. I can absolutely depend on you. I know that you are always what you are. Everybody here has had relationships with people who are all over the map. Each time you meet them, you have no idea where they're coming from. They're virtually like space cadets. You know, as they say in the South, their grits ain't in the middle of the plate. And you also have friends that are as consistent as can be. They're always the same. Now, who are your most precious friends? It's always those people that you can always count on. And so therefore, consistency of interactions over time, relationship consistency, is very important. Very important for the long term. Now, number 6, here's an important point. With larger sales, that means with lots more money involved. Number 2, with more people involved, and more people will be affected. And with a longer life of the product, in other words, once you've bought it, you've stuck with it for a while, or with a first-time buyer. The customer has never bought your product before or has never bought it from you. Either are serious, then the critical variable, as we talked about earlier, is the variable of risk. Today, risk is the major factor in modern selling. It's not product availability, it's not money. People say, well, we can't afford it. Here's a very good line, by the way, a very good comeback. Stop, smile, look them right in the eye and say, Mr. Prospect, you could afford it if you really wanted it, couldn't you? They just collapse. Of course they can. Virtually anybody can afford it. Ability to buy and willingness to buy are two separate categories. So people say I can't afford it. It means that I'm not willing to buy it at that price. If you said you could afford it, if your life depended upon it, you could afford it, couldn't you? If you really wanted it, you could afford it, couldn't you? A person will say, yes, if I really wanted it, of course I could afford it. So that's really the question, isn't it? What is it that holds you back? What is it about what I'm offering you that causes you to hesitate? And often they'll tell you. You'll be straight with them, they'll be straight with you. Do you know what? People love it when people are straight with them. And don't be afraid to be straight with customers. Just tell them straight, you know, I really want to make this sale. And I really don't know how to approach it because you told me you want to think about it, but you haven't given me an answer or told me what part of it you wanted to think about. In other words, be perfectly straight. Can you help me here? They'll say, okay. If you don't try to be a super person, then they'll treat you straightforwardly and honestly as they would treat a friend. Or you could even say to them, treat me as though I was your friend. And if I was your best friend and I was trying to sell you this and I wasn't having any luck, what would you tell me about what I'm doing or not doing? Don't be afraid to ask. If somebody said that to you, wouldn't you tell them? You say, well, since you mentioned it, I will tell you. You're charging twice as much. You're offering half as much. Your company has been taken over by the sheriff, and you're all going to jail. And you've stolen 3 of my ashtrays since you arrived here. Risk is the critical variable in modern selling, and your goal is to minimize not risk so much, but the perception of risk. The perception of risk. Remember, for the customer, perception is reality. The customer may perceive risk where no risk exists. But if the customer's never bought the product before, is that risky? To do something you never bought before? To move out of your comfort zone? To risk failure? Is that a risky thing to do? And if you've never done it before, no, if you've done it a dozen times before, it's easy as pie to make the buying decision. So always ask people, have you ever bought one of these before? If they say no, then you know the perception of risk is very high. Number 7, the main obstacles to selling. The main obstacles to selling today are our old friends. A, the fear of failure. The fear of failure is experienced by the customer. It's 80% of the reason why people don't buy. It's the fear of failure. As I said before, everybody has made bad buying decisions. Did you ever buy something and find it for sale for less somewhere else? Did you ever buy something and have somebody else tell you, geez, you didn't buy that, did you? Nobody buys those anymore. They're all buying these. Did you ever buy something and have it break and you couldn't get it fixed? Did you ever buy something and the company rattled you around, didn't return your phone calls? I mean, everybody has had bad buying experiences from the time you bought your first little toy when you went shopping with your mother and she allowed you to buy something cheap which broke by the time you got it home. You have had bad buying experiences, and you have one common reaction to every buying experience. Do you know what it is? Damn it, this is not going to happen to me again. Next time I'll be smarter. It makes you mad. Isn't that true? It makes you mad. So, what you do is you realize everyone you speak to has this fear of failure. Now, B, the major reason why salespeople don't sell is the fear of rejection, which is 80% of the reason why salespeople don't sell. Now, the worst of all, of course, is when the salesperson who's paralyzed by the fear of rejection meets the customer who's paralyzed by the fear of failure. Now, here they are. It's 2 of them. It's like 2 muggers in an alley. Which direction do we go? This is my territory. So we have developed a series of rituals. Do you know what the rituals are? The rituals are, I won't reject you if you don't force me to risk failure. So the deal is, I won't ask you for the order if you don't tell me no. So at the end of a sales conversation, we go into our little dance. Well, what do you think? Well, I think it looks really interesting. Well, good. Well, why don't I leave you some information and you can look it over? Thank you. You leave me some stuff and I'll look it over. And I'll talk it over with someone else. And okay, and I'll get back to you, and okay, and I'll get back to you, and we'll keep in touch down the years, and I'll send Christmas cards to you, and if there's any changes, I'll let you know. Okay, well, that's good. And so we back out like this, very carefully. Our egos are so sensitive. We're like balloons in a porcupine pen. We're so sensitive about our egos, and we work our way out. And the customer doesn't have to reject us, and we don't have to hear no, and we don't have to, and we flee, and the last thing we hear as we go down the hallway is the sound of our sales materials dropping into the customer's wastebasket. And then the customer goes into, or the prospect, not a customer, the prospect goes into a 3-year meeting. You know what a 3-year meeting is, don't you? You've been calling for 3 years, and the prospect is still in a meeting. I'm sorry, he's in a meeting. You mean he didn't call you back? Well, I gave him your message. I'm really surprised he doesn't call you back. He usually calls all of his calls back. Well, as a matter of fact, he's coming out of his meeting right now. He's just going back into another meeting. He's really busy. Well, why don't you leave your name and number again, and I'll pass it on to him, etc., etc., etc. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Well, what happened was there was no resolution, no conclusion, no perceived advantage on the part of the customer or the prospect in dealing with you anymore, and the customer has no desire to see you anymore. Many reasons for that. Okay, so how do we allay this? Well, the antidote to these fears is the new model of selling. Number 8, it's the new model of selling. And this new model of selling is the model that we find is being used by the top 10% of salespeople in virtually all industries, all products, all services worldwide. And I do sales seminars now. I was in Europe recently, and I did a sales seminar, a series of sales and management seminars in Holland, all day in Holland. And then I flew to Slovenia, Ljubljana in Slovenia, which is to the north of the old Yugoslav Republic and to the south of Austria, and abuts on Italy. If your geography is any good, I spoke all day in Slovenia, then drove 5 hours to Vienna, all the way across Slovenia and Austria, and spoke all day in Austria, a sales and management seminar. Then I flew to Belfast, spoke all day in Belfast. Then I flew to Dublin and spoke in Dublin, Waterford, and Cork. Then I flew back through Heathrow via Frankfurt to Munich and spoke all day in Munich. And then I drove another 5 hours across Austria and into Italy and spoke all day in Italy on the following day. That's 8 days, 9 countries. And you know something? Relationship selling is the key to effectiveness in every country, every culture, every language. That's why this program, by the way, is in 14 languages worldwide, because it bridges all the cultures. And that's why you're going to enjoy what we're going to talk about now. This is neat stuff. Golly. Okay, the old model of selling, you see we have 2 models here. The old model of selling was what most people were brought up on. This is what I was trained on, by the way, when I was a young man. It was developed in the 20s and 30s and crystallized in the 50s, taught to everybody. All the sales trainers, like drinking out of the same bathtub, taught the same methodologies. And throughout the 60s, it was the most popular model. It became ancient in the 70s and was obsolete by the beginning of the 80s. And in watching the videotapes, we find that it's not used by top salespeople, and it's mostly attempted by amateurs and by old line salespeople who should have retired. If ever you want to see the old model of selling, you can take your children down to a used car lot on a side street on the poor parts of town, and the Neanderthals that come out from under the rocks in the back will come out and try the old model on you, dragging their clubs and wearing their animal skins. Am I trying to discourage you from using this old model? Bet your bippy. Okay, the first 10% of the old model was establishing rapport. Hi, how are you? How's it going? Let's get right down to the purpose of the business. Make me an offer. You like it? Make me an offer. Let's get on with it right now. What's holding you back from buying? Make you a good deal. What do I have to do to get the business today? What price do I have to do? I'll match any price that you can offer. Have you heard these? This is one of the surest ways to get an opportunity to see the outside of the building. And again, we've talked with thousands of customers on this. Number 20% of the sale, the next level, is qualifying. Find out if they've got the money before you waste any time with them. However, today we know that if a person will talk to you seriously about your product or service, they're probably qualified to buy it. The question is whether or not they want it badly enough. And that's very much a matter of your sales process. The third part, in the old model, 30% of the sale was presenting. And that's where you used a series of what they used to call sales judo techniques to get the person, twist them around, roll the eyeballs, raise your voice, drop the voice down, use smart-ass questions, flip the whip, whap, boom! Get the sale and get out of there and get that check franked before they change their mind. The old model techniques, by the way, were so effective that almost every state now has a 72-hour law. That a sale can be invalidated within 72 hours because they became so aggressive, because most people are not confrontative. Most people are pretty pleasant. And they became so aggressive and so tricky that you had to have time to think it over because too many people were being victimized. And the last part of the old model was closing. And we were told buyers are liars, so close them early and often. I know you've never heard such an expression here in San Jose or where you come from, but this was very common. Now, in the 70s, the model flipped. It morphed. It morphed from this to, and it flipped. But basically, the new model is very different. The new model is how women sell, which is why women are so successful in sales. The new model is how all the highest paid men sell. The new model is the future of selling. The new model is the 21st century. And here it is. It's also in 4 parts. The sale is in 4 parts. The first 40% of the new model is developing trust. And why is that so important? It's because trust is the glue that holds all relationships together. People in relationships trust each other. Trust between parents, trust between children, trust between employer and employee, trust between bankers and companies, trust between you and your customers. Trust when you're selling promises is absolutely critical. So trust is the glue that holds relationships together. The finest relationships you have are the ones characterized by the highest level of trust and confidence. They're the most important thing. They are the true riches of life, is the relationships you have with people that you trust and who trust you. Very, very important. The second part of the new model of selling, 30%, is identifying needs. And we've learned a most remarkable thing, is that when you focus on the customer's needs by asking well-prepared questions and you listen attentively to the answers and allow the customer to talk, the customer trusts you more. And the more the customer trusts you like a flower in the sun, the more the customer opens up to you and will answer your questions more and more honestly, and then will eventually tell you all the things you need to know in order to help him or her make an intelligent buying decision. So the more you focused on needs, the more the customer trusts you. What's the mistake that salespeople make? They talk about themselves and their company and their products and their services and their background and their history and everything. What's the smart thing that professionals do? They ask questions of the customer and his or her situation. They focus totally on understanding where the customer is coming from. The third part, 20% of the sales process, is presenting. But presenting in the new model is very simple. It's where you show the customer how the needs that you and the customer have mutually identified can be satisfied with your product or service. Mr. Prospect, based on what you've told me, I think we can be of some help to you. For example, what we have here will do exactly this for you. And if your product does 10 things and your customer has only indicated that your customer needs 2, then you only talk about the 2. The other things are interesting as well, but the 2 are critical. And so you only talk about what is really important to the customer. And the last part, the last 10% of the new model is confirming. Does this make sense to you? Is this what you had in mind? Is this an improvement on what you're doing today? And so on. So those are the 4 stages. Now, here's a good question. How far into the sales conversation do you begin talking about your product or service at all? 70%. Calculators may be used for those of you in the back. But the fact of the matter is that you have to be 70% of the way into the presentation before you even start talking about your product or service, because you don't even know if the customer wants it or needs it yet. It's only when you've done the need analysis and the customer has reached need recognition, which is the psychological critical mass where basically the Bombay doors open up and the customer is ready to listen to you talk about your product or service. Up until that time, you leave your materials aside. By the way, here's a very simple technique in selling. It's called going in naked. It's a very powerful technique that is used by the top 10% of salespeople. If you've never done it, try it just once. I have done million-dollar deals on this technique. It's very powerful. You have the appointment, you go in to see the customer for the first time, and you walk in with nothing. Going in naked means empty-handed. It's just a way of getting you to remember it. So you go in with nothing in your hands. They say, "Where's your briefcase?" You say, "I won't need my briefcase because I'm really not here to sell you anything. I'm here more, I see myself more as a consultant, and what I would like to do is maybe ask you a couple of questions and see if we can't help you achieve your goals in a cost-effective way. But I'm not here to sell you anything." Oh, if you're not there to sell anything, it's like open hands. You know, open hands comes from medieval days in Western civilization, where you showed your hands, it was clear that you didn't have a weapon. Today, unconsciously, when a person opens their hands, we think they're more honest. So when you open your hands, it means open, honest, trustworthy, nothing to hide. And you don't need a briefcase. Leave it in your car. And then all you have to have is one piece of paper, and on it you have your letterhead, the name of the person, their title, their company, the time and date and place of the appointment. And then you have on this list, you have between either 3, 5, or 7 questions. Odd numbers are better than even numbers. So just 3, 5, or 7 questions. By the way, I've prepared a quick agenda for you and I know how busy you are, so I've prepared some questions that we might go over to determine whether or not we can be of some help to you. And then you pull this out, and you have 2 copies. You give them one. The questions are very carefully calibrated from general to specific. They move in a logical progression. And the customer sits there with an agenda, and you've got an agenda, and the customer thinks, "My God, a professional. I've been in this business for years. This is the first real pro I've ever seen. Could I get a camera?" Because an agenda is great, and then what you do is you follow the agenda. You can deviate from the agenda, you can ask follow-up questions and so on, but you have an agenda. The customer says, geez, this is going to be a conversation where the person knows where they are and where they're going from. And the last question can be, what do you feel we should do from here? Or what do you feel the next step should be? Or what would you like to do as the next step? In other words, you can design your questions and you can perfect them over time, and agenda close will knock your eyes out. It is so professional. Person says, well, what if you do a really good presentation, you get along fine and everything's fine, and they want to buy your product or service and you don't have your briefcase? Well, you nitwit, you go back to your car and get your briefcase. That's what you do. You deadhead. Jeez, how did you get out for the weekend? Okay. No, they checked passes. All right. Now here's the rule. Number 9, the rule is that listening builds trust. Listening builds trust. Talking doesn't build trust. Listening builds trust. Now here are the listening skills for sales success. Number 10, listening skill number 1, A, is listen attentively. Listening builds trust. Listen attentively. Listen without interruptions. Listen and lean forward. Listen patiently. Nod, smile, agree, lean forward. Face the person directly. The more closely you listen to another person, the better they feel. The better they feel, the more they like and trust you. And even if a customer is complaining, listen attentively and nod, smile, and don't interrupt. Nothing more flattering than a person who listens and hangs on every word. When two people are in love, by the way, the ultimate of listening is expressed. The two people hang on each other's words throughout the entire process of falling in love. They're just enraptured with each other. And when you are totally enraptured with what the customer is saying, the customer feels better and better and better about himself. We find that a person who is listened to closely actually feels their self-esteem going up. They like themselves more and more, and they like the person they're with who's causing them to feel this way. So listening attentively is critical. B is pause before replying. Pause before replying. Pause 3 to 5 seconds. Don't feel you have to answer, just pause. Use silence. Silence is very powerful. Salespeople must become comfortable with silence. Don't feel that you have to fill every moment. And when you pause, you actually hear the person better. You actually tell them you're considering what they have to say, and you avoid the possibility of interrupting them. C is question for clarification. And the very best question for clarification is, how do you mean? How do you mean? Cost too much, how do you mean? We're not interested, how do you mean? We're not in the market right now, how do you mean? We're quite happy with our existing supplier, how do you mean? Just how do you mean is they call it the universal question. You can use it in response to any comment that the customer gives you. And what is the rule? The person who asks questions has control. So when the customer says, I don't want it, I don't need it, can't use it, can't afford it, how do you mean? Whatever the customer says, how do you mean? We don't have it in our budget, how do you mean? Does that mean you don't have it in your budget this moment, but by next quarter, which starts the week after next, you will? How do you mean? In other words, how do you mean? I hate your industry, I hate your company, I hate your products and services, quite honestly, I hate you. How do you mean exactly? How do you mean is wonderful, because when you ask the question, how do you mean, the customer will expand on what they just said, which gives you a chance to listen, and listening builds trust. And trust is the foundation of all good relationships, especially sales relationships. D is feed it back, paraphrase it in your own words. Feed it back, paraphrase it in your own words. Remember, it is only when you paraphrase it in your own words that you prove that you were listening. Up to now, you may have been faking it. Everybody here, this is called the acid test of listening. This is the proof. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you demonstrate you were listening. Remember, everybody's had an experience of working with what is called a phony listener. Where they go, took a Dale Carnegie course, yes, and then you say, well, what about this, what about that? They go, They weren't listening at all. And it's so insulting when that happens. So if at the end of the conversation you pause before replying, you question for clarification, and then you say, well, let me make sure I understand exactly where you're coming from. What you're doing now is this, and what your plans for the future are is that, and what you may be looking for is this, and what you might be interested in would be something like this. Is that correct? When the customer says, yes, that's it. I mean, that's a pretty good restatement. That's it. Then the customer knows that you are really listening. Then you have built trust dramatically, and it puts you much closer to doing a deal if a deal is possible. So remember those 4 parts. Feed it back. Don't rush in. Don't rush in. Make it clear to the customer that you did hear him or her. Now, number 11, and this is one of the most important parts of all, is mega credibility. We say it takes credibility for you to get a hearing, but it takes mega credibility for you to get a sale. In today's market, because of the predominance of risk, your credibility has to be at an inordinate level for the customer to feel comfortable enough to go ahead, to move out of the comfort zone, to take a chance, to face the risk, to face the failure, to face the criticism of a poor decision. So here are some of the ways that you build credibility. And the rule with regard to credibility is everything counts. And all the time we're talking, please don't ever say, oh, well, that doesn't matter, or that's not important, or I don't have to do that, just because you're not accustomed to doing it, or just because you don't like doing it, or for whatever reason. Never dismiss an idea simply because it's outside your comfort zone. Recognize that in selling, everything counts. We're selling promises in exchange for money. Everything counts. Everything counts. Everything counts. So here are the things that count. A is the salesperson. You are a major form of credibility. Terribly important. How you look, how you walk, how you talk, your attitude, your appearance, your dress. And the rule with regard to mega credibility is always dress for success. Go out and get a book on the subject. There's some wonderful books written on how to dress for success in business, in all levels of business, dealing with all kinds of clients. You'll find that all the best image consultants will tell you, if you're selling to law firms, dress a particular way. If you're selling to medical offices, dress a particular way. If you're selling in homes, dress a particular way. If you're selling roofing, dress a different way from if you were selling computers, and so on. But there is a dress, and it's very important, a dress that signals credibility, honesty, believability, reliability, intelligence, knowledgeability, and so on. And there are mistakes that you can make in dress that jar a person, like hitting a record player and the needle going and starting over again. And so therefore, every salesperson must dress for success. 95% of the first impression that you make in selling is contained in your dress. Why should that be? Because on a good day, your dress covers 95% of your body. So therefore, take the time to look good, groom well, polish your shoes. It's an interesting thing, 84% of executives, senior executives in a recent survey once said they would not promote a person whose shoes were scuffed. They are meticulous about polishing their shoes, and if they felt a person had scuffy shoes, they were not reliable for a promotion. They would not buy from people with scuffy shoes. They would not buy from people who did not dress properly in the proper colors. So it's very important. I know enough. I can talk about image all day long. I can go in any room, I can walk through, and I can tell who's making the money and who's not. I have worked with companies, and I've worked with salespeople, and I've shown them how, if you're really open, I'll tell you what, change this, this, and this, and they come back 2 months later and they've doubled their income. Very small modifications in appearance and grooming will just, boom, put a person on the fast track, and they never knew it, and nobody will tell them. Who's going to tell you? I'm sorry, sir, you look a bit dorkish. Your friends aren't going to tell you, your boss isn't going to tell you, your customers aren't going to tell you. So a person walks along with a mistake. I had a friend who's from India, a really, really great guy. He was a very hard-working person, he was very intelligent, and he was very knowledgeable, nice personality, pleasant, and he couldn't make sales. He was so exasperated. He just worked his head hard out. He eventually made enough to get by, but he wasn't successful, and he knew he was more dedicated. He listened to Brian Tracy tapes in his car. Obviously a serious player. And when I shook hands with him, I knew what the problem was. In India, we don't shake hands, we say namaste. Shaking hands is a Western custom. You don't shake hands. So therefore, when he came to the West and people held out their hand, he held out his hand as though it was dead from the wrist down. It was just a social thing where you just held out your hand when other people held out their hands. And the instant he held out his hand, the person would say, hi, it's nice to see you. Abdul, boom. The hand would they would just turn off. And I said, you have to understand that this is a critical part of our culture. It's just like in Europe, when you meet people, you shake hands when you meet them, and you shake hands when you say goodbye to them, and you shake hands when you meet them again and goodbye to them, and every single time you meet them and see them, you shake hands with them. I mean, it is just normal and natural, and if you don't, it is a sign of uncouth behavior and gross rudeness. It's an insult. And if you shake hands once with people when you meet them in our society, in India they don't shake hands at all. So he began practicing. And he just began practicing shaking hands. He'd have to remind himself, but practice makes perfect. Pretty soon his handshake was as solid as a lumberjack's handshake. He got squeezers and he made it, and something his sales just boom, 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 boom. Every other skill he had was possible, but nobody wanted to tell him. Of course, he never spoke to me again either. But now B is the company, and the key parts of the company are reputation and longevity and size. Remember, the reputation is 84%. If your company has a good reputation, brag on your company. Talk about how good your company is, how long you've been in business, how many repeat sales you have from satisfied customers, how fast you've grown, and how proud you are of what a fine company you have. If people don't know about your company, tell them about your company. Let them know. C is testimonials, letters, lists, and photographs. A testimonial letter will get you 80% of the way to a sale. Tremendous form of mega credibility is if you say, by the way, that your product or service is good, people say, what would I expect you to say? Do you know have you heard of the legal expression called puffery? Has everybody heard of puffery? I've taken commercial law. I've taken lots of things. I've gotten over most of them. But in selling, we have misrepresentation, and there are two parts of misrepresentation: innocent misrepresentation and false misrepresentation. Either of those are grounds for setting aside a sale. You said your product would do such and such, and it turned out it wouldn't do it. But I thought it did. My boss told me it did. It's innocent misrepresentation. You weren't trying to fool anybody, but the bottom line was what you bought was not what you bought. So a judge will set it aside. Fraudulent misrepresentation is it won't do it, and you say it will anyway, and you know for sure. That's where the tobacco industry is having a little bit of a challenge right now. It's a question. And then the third is puffery. Now, a person says, he came in here, he said this is the best product in the whole darn Northern California. You just couldn't get a better product on the West Coast. And I turned out that there was a better product sold by a company in Newark, New Jersey, and so on. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Judge will say, out. That's puffery. Salespeople are allowed to puff their product. It's not a grounds for setting aside the sale. It's puffery. So everybody assumes that what salespeople say is puffery. Or at least it has a little in it, Just it's got some in there. Like the Irish say that you have a little bit of blarney. Whenever you're talking, you have a bit of blarney. It's just assumed that what you're saying is puffed a little bit. So therefore, if you say something about your product or service, okay, maybe so, maybe no. But if a customer says something in a letter, on their letterhead, that your product or service is good, the prices are fair, and we've been very happy in dealing with you, that's true. That's admissible in court. So therefore, if you can get testimonial letters, and you can get them by asking for them, show them to your customers. We say testimonial letters are so effective in selling that salespeople who don't use testimonial letters have skinny kids. Now, D is the presentation. The presentation is customer-focused, practiced, and rehearsed, and practiced and prepared. What's the most important word in a sales presentation? Yes, the most important word is the word you. So the whole conversation revolves around you. And so therefore, a really good presentation is focused on you, the customer, and your situation, and what you said, and what you're trying to accomplish, and where you're coming from, and where you're going, rather than me, us, our. So keep focused on the customer. Tremendous form of mega credibility is a very strong customer-focused presentation. Finally, E, A, B, C, D, E, is the product. Now, the product, if it is really, really good, can overcome virtually everything else. The whole purpose of marketing, according to Peter Drucker, is to make selling unnecessary. If the marketing is extraordinary, then the selling is unnecessary. Because the marketing so creates and pinpoints the need or demand so that the customer sees it and buys it, and the salesperson is irrelevant. I'll just take it. And some products often get like that. For instance, did they have to sell Color Me Elmo or whatever that doll was? What was it? Tickle Me Elmo? Didn't tickle me Elmo. Didn't have to sell that, because what happened is that craze started over that, like Cabbage Patch dolls a few years ago. You know that they were flying 747s from Korea with Cabbage Patch dolls in the seats? Can you imagine that? Bags full of Cabbage Patch dolls, seat belted into the seats, whole damn 747 full of Cabbage Patch dolls to get them over here before the Christmas rush was over. I mean, that's how well they were selling. 747s full? Can you imagine that? Anyway, so the product was so good that it didn't need to be marketed. Your job is to show that the product is the ideal solution and that the value outweighs the price. The value outweighs the price. It's clear that the value, you get far more in use value than you pay for in dollar cost. That's the key to mega credibility. And remember the rule. This is the rule for success for the rest of your career. Everything counts. Everything counts. Everything helps or hurts. Everything adds up or takes away. Everything counts. Everything counts. Everything counts.
This is the end of this disc. The program continues on the next CD.
Now, persuasion, negotiation, and influence skills, this is the most important of all because that's all we do all day long is negotiate, persuade, influence, and communicate with other people. That determines the whole quality of our lives is how good we are at it. The number one reason, by the way, the number one reason for failure in America is poor social skills. Poor social skills is 95% of the reason that people are fired from their jobs, not lack of technical skills. Poor social skills is the primary reason for failure in every form of relationship, from the most personal relationship up to the most distant business relationship. So developing good social skills is really important. Your ability to negotiate well on your own behalf is instrumental to your success. So let's talk about negotiating. Number one rule, everything is negotiable. Every price on anything was set by someone. Every circumstance, every detail is negotiable. Just recognize that. Even if they print the sign and the price and they put it on an item at the store, it's negotiable. Somebody printed the price. Somebody picked a number out of a hat, wrote it down. Your question is to find out how hard that number is. And of course, everybody else's job is to find out how hard your numbers are. So A, ask your way to success. Ask your way to success. Asking is the key to the future. Don't be afraid to ask. Ask for lower prices. If you're buying, ask for higher prices. If you're selling, ask for a higher salary. If you're starting a job, ask for increases. Ask for orders. Ask for business. Ask for meetings and appointments. Ask for follow-up meetings and appointments. Ask for resales and referrals. Don't be afraid to ask. If you ask, what can the person say? The person could say no. So therefore, you're in exactly the situation that you were a few seconds ago. A few seconds ago, you had nothing. You asked. They said no. You have nothing again. Nothing has changed. But you've asked. And it is absolutely amazing how many people don't buy because they say, well, he just didn't ask. Sat here, talked, smiled, showed me his price list, demonstrated everything. I was interested in it, but they didn't ask. 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 Ask for what you want. Okay, B, fear of rejection holds people back. Now, the way that you overcome your fear of rejection is just ask. Make a habit of asking. Ask politely. Ask in a friendly way. Ask confidently. Ask cheerfully. Ask nicely. Ask warmly. Ask graciously. But ask. Ask. Don't be afraid to ask. The key to good negotiating is just to ask. And if you don't get that, ask for something else. If you want some negotiating lessons, look at young kids. They are so good. Catherine says, can I go to the store with you? No. Well, if I go to the store, I'll stay in the car. Okay, you get there. You wait in the car with whoever's in the car. And can I go in the store, please? No. Please let me go in the store. I just want to go. I just want to see the inside of the store. I haven't seen the inside of his store for 15 minutes. So we think, all right, let her come in the store. Can I have a toy? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? No. No. Can I have a toy? Can I please have a toy? Can I have a big toy? No. Can I have a little toy? No. Can I have two little toys? No. Can I go look at the toys? All right, you can go look at the toys. She comes back with an armful of toys. Which of these toys can I have? No, 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 no. And then the parents start to look at you, the other parents. I was at a toy store with my son, and he was asking for something. I said, no, you can't have it. No. I said, that's ridiculous. You get lots of stuff. He gets lots of stuff. And I was just a little bit cross. I was a little bit, and he said, no. Oh, well. And then this guy, I'll never will forget this guy. He was long-haired. He was poorly dressed. Nice young guy. He came up and he gave me $2. He said, get him the toy. I felt so rotten. I kept the $2. But those kids, I'll tell you, they don't have any problems with asking. Ask. They're like termites. Okay. Number 2, the purpose of a negotiation in selling. When we are selling to our customers, remember it is the resale and the referral that is critical to our long-term success. You never want to ruin a relationship. You want to start a relationship with a negotiation, not end one. So the purpose of a negotiation is to reach an agreement. And to reach an agreement such that both parties are satisfied and willing to do business again. Both parties feel committed to it because both parties feel better off. There's a Chinese expression that says at the end of a good negotiation, both parties leave smiling because they both feel that they're better off than they were before they entered into the negotiation with the other person. A, seek for fairness and equity. I always use the word fair. It's one of the most powerful words in the English language. Well, let's do the fair thing, or that's really not a fair request, or what would be fair for you, or how do you think we should structure it so you feel that it's fair? The word fair is a tremendous word in negotiating. And again, it's a real word, it's an honest word, but never enter into a negotiation that you feel is not fair. Keep insisting on fairness. And sometimes people who are being excessive will cool down a bit when you point out to them how important it is to be fair. B, aim for win-win or no deal. Aim for win-win or no deal. In other words, both must be happy, both must be smiling, both must be satisfied, or no deal. I will not enter into a deal if you're not happy with this. If you're not happy with it, let's not do it at all. And sometimes, by the way, that will bring a negotiation back on track. And your job is never to take advantage of the other person. Always to seek win-win. Now, number 3, power is a critical element in negotiating. When you're negotiating to buy a home, when you're negotiating to buy or sell a car, or buy or sell a home, power is very important. When you're in negotiations, and I've done multi-day negotiating sessions where basically an entire negotiating team, basically me and 8 of them, is tied up in a room to negotiate a multi-million-dollar, 62-page contract. And I've done this several times, and there are days and days of negotiating, going through the contract. I know all about negotiating. I've negotiated tens of millions of dollars of complex contracts of all kinds in several different countries. And what I know is that sometimes you have to look at how you can develop power which gives you an edge in a negotiation. These are not subtle or ulterior things. They're very powerful tools that you have to have. And here are the 5 forms of power. A is expertise. Expertise is superior knowledge of the subject. Do your homework. If you have really done your homework and you really know what's available and what people are paying and what the prices are and what has just happened in the marketplace, you have tremendous power as opposed to the person who's been too rushed and who doesn't understand the marketplace that well. I was in a negotiation with a shopping center once with a Safeway. They were going to be the anchor tenant on the shopping center. If I got them, I could build the shopping center because I could get the financing. Not only that, I could get all the other tenants because they were going to be the biggest tenant in town. And they presented me with a contract and they said, here's our standard contract. And this is the only one we work with. If this is acceptable to you, then we can go ahead. If not, then we'll just do something else. And I needed them desperately. They had power, huge power. As it happened, I happened to know someone who knew someone who had built a shopping center and rented a Safeway to them recently. And I went to them, and through my channels, I got a copy of the lease that they had finally agreed to. The terms were totally different. Safeway had caved in several critical areas that if they had not been modified would have in the long term been very harmful. So I went back to them and I said, these terms won't work for us based on my numbers. We need to change them. They told me, and they swore they had never deviated from this contract. This was the only contract. This would cashier the deal. This was over. It was finished. But I knew they had just entered into another agreement for a similar shopping center with another developer. And so I never told them that, but I knew. And by the time the dust had settled, I had gotten my new agreement completely parallel with their new agreement with the other shopping center. It had made the shopping center a great success, and it even made me a little bit. But superior knowledge is a critical form of power. Whenever you're going to negotiate with someone, get as much knowledge as you can about the deal. B, knowledge of needs of the other. How do you find about needs of the other? Well, one of the ways is research. Find out what the person's really after. What are they negotiating for? What are they trying to accomplish? And ask them. Asking them what their needs are, and what I would say, what would you ideally like to get out of this contract? What would you ideally like to get out of this negotiation? And what would be the ideal outcome of this discussion from your point of view? And often they'll tell you exactly what they want. I've had situations where they have said, well, this would be our ideal outcome. And I've said, well, based on that, I think that if you can satisfy us here, we can make that work for you, which will satisfy your requirements. We don't have to spend days doing this. And we've come out with very big and very satisfactory negotiations. Don't be afraid to ask. C, another form of power is identification. Identification is liking. Is if the person identifies with you and likes you, then they're much more amenable to your suggestions in terms of negotiating or getting better terms. And here are the words that you use. Whenever they say something that's difficult, you say, I understand how you feel. I understand how you feel. These are some of the most important words that you can learn in getting along with other human beings. If a person is upset or demands something, we demand this. Well, I understand how you feel and how that might be important to you. Is there some other way that we could go about it? I understand how you feel relaxes the person and makes them feel that they're recognized, that they're okay, that they're safe. Be a nice person. Say, look, we want to do the fair thing here. We want to come to an agreement that you're happy with. I negotiated a 5-year multinational, multi-million-dollar deal with somebody recently, and I repeated this mantra, and it finally sunk in, is we want to enter into an agreement that you're comfortable with. You tell me if there's anything in this agreement that you're not comfortable with, and we'll massage it, because I want you to be comfortable. I want you to be happy with this agreement. And we went from a long way apart with lawyers and everything else to a very acceptable agreement that has not had a wrinkle in several years, because my emphasis was I want you to be comfortable with whatever we agree on. Because then the person sort of feels, well, I don't need to be a jerk here if this person has made it clear that they're going to do whatever is necessary to make me comfortable. And by the way, by insisting that they're comfortable, they will, surprise, surprise, insist that you be comfortable as well. Or you can say, based on that, I'm not comfortable with that. I want you to be comfortable, but I'm not comfortable with that. Comfortable is a good word. Comfort is a good word. D is rewarding and punishing, which is called carrot and stick. Make it clear that the person knows how much they can gain by dealing with you, by entering into this agreement. Also, make it clear how much they're likely to lose if they don't. If they get this, they'll get exactly the one they want in the color, in the style, in the model, delivered within 72 hours. If they don't, they may not get what they want. It may cost more. It may take several weeks to get it. In other words, what you will gain, what you will lose. The reward versus the punishment. Be very gentle. Emphasize very strongly the rewards. Very gently the detriments to not going ahead. Don't beat people up with it. And E is investment. Investment of time, investment of money, investment of emotion on either party increases power. If you have really put a lot into making this work, then the other person to a certain degree has more power than you do, because you've got more on the table than they do. It's called hurting money. You're going to hurt more if it doesn't come off. And sometimes a person's reputation in their company hangs on them getting a deal. And if the person negotiating with you knows you have to get this deal or you're going to have to answer to your superiors, then they can always get a better deal. So even if you put in a lot of time, money, and emotion, be cool. Be cool. We'll come back to this in a second. I'll give you one of what I consider to be one of the best negotiating tactics that there is. Number 4 is emotions can help you or hurt you in negotiating. They can help you or hurt you in negotiating. A, desire, is how badly you want it. It's the critical element. If you really, 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 really want it, woo, 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 you've got to have it, your ability to negotiate is pretty poor. So therefore, the very best negotiators are kind of passive. I used to teach negotiating in the graduate faculty at the university in labor management relations. It was a critical part of the MBA program. So what we did is I would have a team, and I would show them how to negotiate with another team, which was the labor team. We were management, they were labor. And I would have my team just plan and prepare to be perfectly passive when they went into the discussions. And we were lined up on opposite sides of the table like a real negotiation with exercises. And we would come in and we would sit down and we would sit there and there'd be no emotion. Now these are all people that we knew. It was an exercise. And they're friends, and so on. But in the negotiation there's no emotion. No friendliness, nothing. Passive, blank, dead, ice water in your veins. And we would negotiate, and we would be very polite and defer back and forth, and we would absolutely refuse to accept their terms, and we would say they're completely impossible, and then we'd go back and we have compromise, and we'd say, well, let us talk about it, and we would get up impassively and walk out, all 5 of us. And we'd discuss it outside, we'd go back in completely impassively. In every case, we won, hands down, in getting a vastly better deal for our side than for their side. Why? And they told us afterwards, they said it was so unnerving. We had no idea where you were coming from, what you would accept, what you wouldn't accept. So passivity is important. If you look like you really want it, or if you get emotionally involved in it, you lose your power. B is how badly do you want it, how badly does he or she want it? No matter how badly you want it, appear indifferent. Appear indifferent. Well, we like it, it looks pretty good. We've looked at several others. It's sort of, it's in the short list of our preferences, but no big passion, even though your wife has said, if you don't come home with it, don't come home, C is emotional involvement reduces power. The Chinese tell an interesting story because in China, the jade is almost a sacred stone. It's considered luck, fertility, long life, health. And things made of jade are very, very important in the Chinese culture. And throughout the years, wealthy Chinese purchased jade. Everybody purchases pieces of jade. And so the jade merchants were very adept because the Chinese, of course, have the capacity to be totally stone-faced, no matter how excited they are. So what the jade merchants would do is they would cover all the pieces of jade, and they would then show one piece at a time. But as they showed the piece, they would look up and watch the face of the person who they were negotiating with. And if they showed a piece that the person really liked, their eyeballs would dilate like that. And the jade merchant, also totally impassive, talk about tough negotiating, totally impassive, would then show the next piece. And as he showed the piece, the person's eyes would go down, his eyes would go to the eyes and watch. If the eyes didn't move, he'd keep going until he knew which piece or pieces the person really liked. And those were the pieces that were then brought back, and those were the ones he could negotiate the strongest with. Very interesting. Very interesting. So just watch. Just watch. Okay, number 5. Number 5 in negotiating is time can be a critical element in negotiating. Time can be a critical element. It can work for you or against you. And again, you have to give this a lot of thought. The more pressing the need, the less effective the negotiator. So even if you need something desperately, don't make it appear that you do. That's why the Japanese are famous. When a person comes over to negotiate with them, the first thing they do is they pick up their airplane tickets and say, let us take care of all the arrangements for you. Then they look at when you have to leave. And then they stall the negotiations until the day you have to leave. And you end up often negotiating in the taxi on the way to the airport with them and settling for anything because your plane is leaving. And so it's a very interesting technique. Find out what sort of time parameters do we have here. Ask, find out. When do you have to make a decision? When do you want to make a decision? If the person has time pressures, I learned a very interesting thing. When we were buying a house, we needed a mortgage of about $500,000. This was some years ago. And we went around and we were new in California, and you might as well have been from outer space because No credit rating anywhere in the world means anything if you're new. So we were new, and we went from mortgage company to bank to mortgage company. We couldn't get a mortgage. And then in the last half of December, everything started to come together. Scramble, documents, notarizations, proofs, tests, evaluations, and everything. And the final document was signed on December 31st at 5 in the afternoon. I learned later why. It's because there was a rush on for quota. And it was 1-year quota, and bonuses were being awarded to the senior people based on the amount of financing they'd written that year. And now they had to get this done. And $500,000 was a hefty chunk of change. When is the best time to buy a car? It's usually in the last week of the month, because that's when quota. People want to make quota, and they want to get their quota by the end of the month. Almost all products can be purchased better in the last week of the month than anywhere during the month, especially the first week. First week, hey, they've got a whole month ahead of them. No need to negotiate. So find out, what are the time constraints? Are you on a quota? And what is your quota period? Oh, good. Now you come back on the last day of your quota and let's talk seriously. B is deadlines. Set deadlines wherever possible. Set deadlines wherever possible. Avoid deadlines wherever possible. Here's a gambit that's very simple. I learned it with my kids. If they say, I've got to have an answer right now, you say, then if you have to have an answer right now, then the answer is no. Oh, all right. Well, then I can wait for an answer. In other words, don't let yourself get boxed in by somebody else's deadline. Delay, put off decisions whenever you can. One of the rules for timing is what I call a 24-hour fuse. A deal that seems perfect today, you should always say, well, I need to think about it for 24 hours. Or I need to discuss it with someone, and I won't be able to talk to him until tomorrow. A deal that seems perfect at this moment in every respect is vastly improved by letting it steep for 24 hours. The best of all is 72 hours, a long weekend. If you can buy yourself 24 hours to 72 hours to think about it, the decision you make then will be vastly superior to a decision you might make on the spur of the moment. So always buy time whenever you can. Say, I'd love to do it, but I have to check it with someone else, and I won't be able to give you an answer until next week. But, your answer will always be much better. Okay, number 6 is developing options improves your position. Developing options improves your position. The more alternatives you have, the stronger you are. This, by the way, is one of my philosophies of life. Is that the business of life is to develop options. The business of your life is to develop options. So as soon as you have one option, develop another. As soon as you have 2, develop 3. You should never, as they say, a great life, like a great ship, should never be hung by a single hope or by a single rope. In other words, your life should have options. You should, if you're in a job today, your skill level should be so high you could walk to another job tomorrow. You should never be boxed in anywhere. If you want to buy something, find out what else is available, and always think in terms of, if I didn't do this, I could do that. Always have options. People with options are free. People without options are trapped. So, the more alternatives you have, the stronger you are. B, you are only as free as your options. You're only as free as your options. That's why it's so important to have a lot of customers going, a lot of prospects going, rather than having just one big prospect. That's why it's so important to continue upgrading your skills in a time of rapid change. So there's lots of things you could do if you had to stop doing what you're doing today. 7, know exactly what you want. This goes back to what we talked about earlier. That's my favorite word in success, is the word clarity. Clarity. Know exactly what you want. Think it through. Take the time to be absolutely crystal clear. The person who is crystal clear always has an advantage in a negotiation over the person who's not sure. A, what outcomes do you desire? Ask yourself, if you could get the perfect outcome, what would it be? Think it through. If it's a big negotiation, discuss it with others. I did a major negotiation, a huge negotiation recently, and I spent several hours discussing it with the president of my company, all the ramifications, what they would want, what we would want, what they would ask for, what we would settle for, where we wanted to be, what would be the ideal outcome. And when we sat down with them, there were 3 of them and 2 of us, they brought in a stack of papers. Each one of them had a stack, a working stack, all written up, marked, stick-on noted. they had been through this exercise exhaustively for hours, exactly what we had done. But fortunately, we were completely prepared. And we came out with an agreement that left both people smiling. But it was because we had both taken the time to really think through the ideal outcome. B, what are you prepared to give in order to get what it is you really want? What are you prepared to give? Think about that. Sometimes people go into a negotiation, they don't even think about what they're prepared to. 8, and this is perhaps the most important of all, 8 is preparation. Preparation is the mark of the professional. Preparation, in my estimation, is 80% or more of a successful negotiation. 80% or more of a successful sale. Preparation is the mark of the pro. Though you cannot prepare too much, the word is always over-prepare. When in doubt, prepare a little bit more. And prepare a little bit more besides. And prepare a little bit more. You cannot be over-prepared. I've worked with people who will go over and over and over something. I'll give you a perfect example. I know Jack Kemp. I like Jack Kemp. He's an interesting guy. Jack Kemp did not prepare for the debate with Al Gore and finished his prospects as a presidential candidate. He was out of the running as of that hour. He was told, because God bless him, he's a loose cannon. He was told, you must prepare because Gore will prepare. Gore is not a good debater. He's not colorful, but he does his homework and he prepares. And Gore was ready like a bear trap. And Kemp came off the campaign trail and, met some friends at the hotel and went over for the debate with a few handfuls of notes and got just chewed up and spit out. The Economist of London said it was an embarrassing performance that ruined Kemp's chances for high political office in America because of the failure to prepare. He knew weeks in advance this was his moment and he blew it. Preparation is really important. Okay, A, what are yours? What are his or her major concerns? What are the major concerns here? Think on paper. This is the great rule in negotiating. If it's important enough, think on paper. Write down everything that you can think of that might be a major concern for the other person. Write down your major concerns. Write down what you want to accomplish. Write down what they might want to accomplish. B, what are the issues to be resolved? What are the issues to be resolved? Money issues, timing issues, responsibility issues, payment issues, interest rate issues, penalty issues. What are the issues to be resolved? C, what are the starting positions of each party? Sometimes the starting positions are diametrically opposed. Union comes in and demands a 3-time pay increase with 8 hours less per week and increased benefits, pensions, and medical, and absolutely no cuts anywhere. Well, it's a preposterous position. But it's based on the old thing that the management will come in, offer half pay for an 80-hour week, and cut all medical and benefits. Now those where they start off. All right, now what we do is get up, walk out, scream, shout, go to the newspapers, come in later on, and let's start to work toward the center. But what are the positions? You could even call them up and ask them, basically, where do you want to be in each of these areas? And sometimes they'll tell you. And sometimes they'll be reasonable and sometimes they'll be unreasonable. D, what are your maximums? What are your minimums? What's the most that you will pay? What's the least that you will pay? What's the most that you will go for? What's the least that you will go for? I negotiated a multi-million-dollar contract with the Japanese. They offered a 3-year contract. We demanded a minimum of 5. We ended up with 4. I would have preferred 5. They would have preferred 3. But 4 was worth another $10 million. It was okay. And as it turned out, that was a major decision because the first 3 years were building years. The 4th year was when the harvest came in. And so we had control of the importation and everything else. So what are the maximums, what are the minimums, and where can you saw off? Number 9, the law of 4. Now the law of 4 is very interesting. It says that the number of issues to be negotiated is basically not more than 4. And the issues are like this: 1 big issue and 3 small issues. 2, 3, and 4. How does a negotiation take place? Well, both people have the same 4 issues, but they have them in different order of value. So the other person has 2 and 1, 3, 4. If both of them have the same issue as the major issue, then you can reach a standoff where you're not successful. So therefore, let us say you're buying a house. What are the major issues? Price terms, occupation, and what's included in, and maybe even secondary financing. 4 major issues. So the other person's major concern is terms, price, secondary financing, and date of occupancy. So what you do is you have to go back and you have to find a way to rectify these 4 issues. I have dealt with 50 and 60-page contracts, negotiation contracts with maybe 10 clauses to be negotiated on each page. And after 2, 3, 4, 5 days locked in a hotel room, going back and forth, it's come down to 4 issues. In fact, it starts with 4 issues, and after 5 days, it's still 4 issues. There may be 150 issues, and 146 are resolved. The last 4 are the ones that count. And the last major one, I did a major negotiation with the town. It was over $3 million in off-site development costs. They wanted $3 million. They had committed to the town council they were going to get $3 million. They were determined to get $3 million from us. We didn't have $3 million, and yet we knew that this was their big issue. But my big issue was terms. Their big issue was amount. So what we did is we agreed. Finally, and I saved it for the last, we agreed, we caved on this. On one understanding, is that we can pay you the amounts as we sell the lots, not in a lump sum in advance. Well, okay, that's reasonable because they wouldn't need the off-site services from the town until the lots were sold and occupied. So we then slapped on the additional price per lot to the homeowners who bought the lots and agreed to pay them the amount, and when we got it, we transferred it straight across. They got their number, we got our terms, we had a deal. 150 clauses, 62 pages, and still to this day they're clapping themselves on the back, and I had that worked out before we went in on the Monday morning, that this is where we would be on Friday afternoon. Besides, they all wanted to go home on Friday afternoon because it was the end of the week and they wanted to go home with their families, so we signed this at 4:30. I waited until 4 o'clock and I said, I think there's a way we can make this work. And everybody that went out of the room smiling. They're still smiling today. God bless them. Number 10, simple negotiating tactics. Simple negotiating tactics. Here they are. A is the flinch. The flinch is very common. It's no matter what price the person gives you, you flinch. You go, ooh, jeez. Like you've just been impaled with a spear or punched in the solar plexus. Doesn't matter what the price is. How much is it? It's $2.95. Jeez. Jeez, can I get a glass of water? God. Often, if the price is soft, the price will drop with a flinch. A good flinch will give you a price drop of 20 to 50%. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And you just look with shock, as if, et tu, Brute, could you have put this knife so deeply in me, this amount? Now, B is another tactic that you can use, is called the question. You say, is that the best you can do? Is that the best you can do? Is that the very best you can do? As if you're astonished. As if the price they gave you somehow got garbled in transmission. You didn't hear the words. Is that the best you can do? And if you do this in combination, oh, geez, is that the best you can do? If the price is soft, it collapses very quickly. Now, if somebody does this to you, you say, nice flinch. Good. Did you get that from Brian's course? Okay. Now, C is assertion. Assertion is, I can get it much cheaper somewhere else. You see, this is a part of homework. I can get it much cheaper somewhere else. I remember I was buying something, I forget what it was, and I'd done my homework and I found that it was for sale at another place cheaper, but it was a different color, size, and shape. The one I wanted was this. The color that they had I didn't want, but it was much cheaper, although it was the identical product, just the different features. So I said to them, I can get it much cheaper somewhere else. That's not true. Yes, I can. I know I can. I've already checked the market. You tell me where you can get it cheaper. I was thinking it's cheaper from ABC Company. Well, that's not possible. I went and phoned ABC Company, came back. You're right. They're willing to sell it cheaper than we do. Okay, we'll match their price. So I saved, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000. I don't even remember what the amount was, but because I'd done my homework, I didn't want what the ABC Company had. I wanted what this company had. Because I'd done my homework, I was able to get it. So always say, I can get it cheaper somewhere else. That decimates people. I can get something better, cheaper somewhere else. What? Who? What? Who? Ha? Who? What? Now, try a combination. Who? Is that the best you can do? I can get it cheaper somewhere else. I mean, that's like punching with a punching ball. Now, D is lowball. D is lowball. That's where you offer a lowball price. Sometimes offer half price. Offer a dramatically lower price, and if possible, give reasons for the price. Your reasons can be personal. I was only expecting to pay this amount, which is less than the half price, but I'm willing to go even higher to get this, but I can't go all that way. In other words, if you give any kind of a reason, the person may accept or reject the reasons. I have a friend in Phoenix. He's a millionaire. He's not very smart. He doesn't have two brains to rattle together. But he took a course on buying real estate with no money down, and he learned a technique in which it was called lowball with a motivated buyer. And he finds that there's always buyers who own the house outright or own most of it and want to sell it immediately, and they don't care. So he goes out, and wherever there's a house for sale, he goes up to the door and he said, "How much are you asking?" And most people ask about 110% of what they hope to get. Okay, and whatever it was, let's say the person's asking $100,000. He'd say, "I'll give you $50,000 cash right now, no questions asked." Well, he gets a lot of abuse. He gets sprinklers turned on him and dogs sicked on him. He gets people swearing at him too, and he gets doors slammed in his face. But he buys one house out of 100 is his number. Because after going around, dutifully he walks 10, 15 houses a day, he finds somebody who's highly motivated. The parents died, the kids are out here from the east, they've got to sell the house. Somebody's just been fired from their job, or they're going through a divorce, a bankruptcy, something else. Got to get rid of the house. I'll give you $50,000. Sometimes people actually have to put in money to get free of the house to keep their credit rating clear. And then what he does, he goes down to the bank and he rents the house at just below market rentals. And he's always advertising for clients who like beautiful houses just below market rentals. So he always gets the cream of the rental. If a house like this would rent for $500 a month, he rents it for $480. And so he's got people who want the house. He moves them into the house at $480 a month. He takes and goes down to the bank, and now he's got someone who pays all the payments. He finances the house for $80,000, 80% of the value, and he takes the extra $30,000. He does some landscaping, some painting, some carpets. Takes him $5,000 or $10,000. Got a beautiful house. Moves the tenant in. The tenant makes all the payments. He walks away with about $10,000, $20,000 in his pocket. All the payments are made by the tenant. He's on to the next house. He's a millionaire today. Sounds like a simple way of buying things. Well, it's not simple for him. Just half price. Well, of course, you're going to get a lot of abuse. And whatever they say, you flinch. Geez, I can get houses cheaper than that. Oh, okay. So E is silence. Silence is involved with patience. And what it means is this, is when a person gives you the price, don't say anything, like the Chinese jade merchant. Just be completely passive. Just don't say anything. Don't respond. Just go dead. You know, like they just unplugged you. And they say, well, what do you think of that? I say, I don't think anything of it. I just can't respond. Well, do you think it's a good price? I just don't know what to say. I have watched people just do this, or the temperature comes down like a thermometer on a cool day. The price comes down as they sit there silently. Well, how about $720? How about $7? How about $690? $680? $640? $650? I mean, and the silence is unnerving, especially if the price is too high. And at a certain point, you lighten up again. So silence is very powerful. And I can tell you all kinds of negotiations that are just wonderful. F is the nibble. The nibble is the add-on. Once you've agreed to the deal, everything's done, you're about to sign it, you say, oh, by the way, you will throw in one of these, won't you? Or this will include one of those and two of those, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. Then you take the pen, you say, oh, well, the heck with it then. The heck with it then. If you're willing to throw this whole deal away, if you're willing to throw the whole damn thing away for a crummy delivery or a free trip to Acapulco, well, you can have it. Lots of other people are willing to throw in this and willing to throw in that. I've seen people, this guy that buys houses, he often gets them to throw in the car. He said, well, of course that includes the car in the garage. Well, they hadn't thought about the car in the garage because it didn't belong to them anyway. He knows why they're selling the house. And they say, well, no, that doesn't. Well, okay, forget it then. I mean, there's no point in my buying the house if I'm not getting the car. And of course, you'll be leaving the drapes and the kitchen appliances. I mean, there's no point in getting rid of those. I mean, they're not worth anything anyway. I mean, he just goes like this. It's unbelievable. All they just want to do is catch the plane back to Ohio. They want to get out of here. He ends up with half the house, most of the lawn equipment, 2 or 3. Okay, number 11 is the walk-away method of negotiating. The walk away is what I was mentioning earlier. It's one of the most powerful of all negotiating techniques, is after you've negotiated, perfectly passive, gone through the flinch and gone through the various reactions and the dead silence, be prepared to get up and walk away. You never know the final price till you're willing to walk away. You never know how low they will go till you walk away. You can save as much as you could earn in a year after cost of living by just negotiating well, by walking away. Sometimes the price will drop 5, 10, 15, 20. One case I got $30,000 drop from walking away on a house. $30,000 that's in my pocket rather than in their pocket. That's worth walking away. The person says, well, what if you walk away and they don't come after you? Go back. It's only a game. It's only a game. In the Israeli Knesset, they had a situation recently where the opposing party got up and walked out of the Knesset. And they said, well, I guess this means that the coalition is over. He said, no. He said, getting up and walking and stomping out is just a form of negotiating. Just get up, stomp out. If it doesn't work, come back in. And leave somebody there. That's another trick. Leave somebody there, get up, walk out, and they'll say, look, let me talk to him. Let me talk to her. She's very volatile. Let me talk to her. I go, okay, I'll come back. I think we can do the deal. But you're going to have to bend here, or she's going to leave. I mean, she's getting in her car now. So now you're the good guy. You see what I'm talking about? Just think about it. It saves a lot of money. And number 12, remember this, no negotiation is ever final. No negotiation is ever final. With new information, ask to reopen the negotiation. If you learn something new that changes what you've agreed to in the past, go back and say, I'm not happy with this. Based on what I found out, I think we should renegotiate. And B, both parties should be happy. I will tell you this, Mark McCormick is a really great guy. Mark's one of the best negotiators in the world, owns a sports marketing group and a whole lot of other things, worth several $100 million. And Mark said that he has never held a person to a contract who wanted out, and it's never hurt his career. Any person, and I've done the same thing. Anybody who's ever come to me and said, I want out of this contract, I've let them out. It'll never hurt you. If they say, based on my situation, based on everything now, I want out, let them go. It'll always come back to your benefit. Never hold a person's feet to the fire. Never get the last pound of flesh. Always be willing to let people go if they're not happy with the contract, and it will always inure to your benefit.
This is the end of this disc. The program continues on the next CD.
Okay, here's the last 7 self-motivators, and then we're on our way. I appreciate you guys. You guys are really great. We've had a good day, haven't we? Yes? Thank you. And these are the last 7 reminders, and we're on our way, and I want you to think about how you're going to apply them. Number 1, get serious. Get serious. Make a decision to go all the way to the top. Up to now, you've thought about it. Up to now, it's passed your mind. Many of you made the decision, and you decided to get serious, and your lives have taken off. It's the most extraordinary thing. Your life is one, like in the shadow, going up the dark side of the hill, until the moment you decide that, by gum, I'm going to be the best in what I do. I'm going to be in the top 10%. And suddenly you emerge into the sunshine, and your life is forever after different. Wonderful. Get serious. Don't fool around anymore. Number 2 is identify your limiting step to sales success. What's your limiting step? What's the one skill area that's holding you back? What's the skill? What's the quality? What's the attribute? Ask other people. Find out, what do you need to become good at? Sometimes you may be only one skill. If you became really, really good on the telephone, you could maybe double your prospecting effectiveness and double your sales. If you became very, very good in getting the order at the end from qualified prospects, you could double your sales. If you became very, very good at managing your time, so you really, really manage your time well, you may be able to double your face time and double your income. Find out what's holding you back. What's holding you back? What is the critical limiting step that's determining your success today? Number 3 is get around the right people. Who are the right people? The right people are the people in this room. Get around winners. Get around positive people. Get around people with goals and plans and people who are going somewhere with their lives and have high aspirations. Get around and fly with eagles. As Zig says, you can't continue to scratch with the turkeys if you want to fly with the eagles. And get away from negative people. Get away from toxic people that complain and whine and moan all the time. Who needs them? Geez, life is too short. Number four is take excellent care of your health. Take excellent care of your physical health. That means good diet, good exercise. Everybody knows they should eat better foods, regular exercise, and especially lots of rest. That's very important. If you're going to work hard 5 days a week, go to bed early 5 days a week. Get a good night's sleep. Be fully rested. Tonight, be really rested. You don't have to watch the Letterman show. It's brain dead anyway. I think it's played mostly into institutions and mental asylums. I mean, you just look at this useless gibberish and claptrap. Watch Jay Leno. Jay's better. Number 5, positive visualization. Positive visualization. See yourself as the very best in your field. Remember, all improvement in your life begins with an improvement in your mental pictures. See yourself, visualize yourself continually. You are the best, isn't that right? Yes. So therefore, see yourself as the best. And number 6, positive self-talk. Talk to yourself positively all the time. Control your inner dialogue. And what do you say to yourself? You say, I'm the best. Say it, I'm the best. I can do it. I like myself. I love my work. Yes, that's how you talk to yourself. And the more you say it to yourself, someone said, well, Pete's saying, well, what if you say those things and to yourself and you don't believe them? Isn't that lying to yourself? No, that's not lying to yourself. It's telling the truth in advance. Because it doesn't matter where you're coming from. All that matters is where you're going. Talk to yourself the way you want to be, not the way you just happen to be at this moment. Remember, you may have gotten to where you are today largely by accident, but where you're going in the future is purely by design. And number 7, positive action. Get going. Move fast. Develop a sense of urgency. A sense of urgency is the one thing that you can develop that will separate you from everyone else in your field. Develop a bias for action. When you get a good idea, do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Only 2% of people in our society have a bias for action. And if you're already in the top 10%, you can move yourself into the top 2% by resolving that whenever you have an idea or something, do it now. Do it now. Do it now. And the faster you move, the better you get. And the better you get, the more you like yourself. And the more you like yourself, the higher your self-esteem is. And the higher your self-esteem is, the greater your self-discipline, and the more you persist, and you ultimately become unstoppable. You're the best. You're the best.
This concludes Day 1 of Brian Tracy's Success Mastery Academy. Now, listen on for a special bonus section, Brian's 7 Steps to Mental Fitness.
Hello, I'm Brian Tracy, and I want to talk to you today about one of the most important single aspects of success, of all kinds of success, and it's what you've heard of called a positive mental attitude. A positive mental attitude is a generally constructive response to the stresses that face the average person every single day. A positive attitude is where you feel that you have the ability to control your world and to control your life. A positive attitude is like a chicken and egg thing. If you're successful, you're positive. If you're positive, you're successful. Which comes first? It doesn't really matter, but we know this, is that positive thinkers are men and women who accomplish an awful lot more than people who have negative mental attitudes. In fact, we've come to the conclusion that positive thinking is really mental health, and negative thinking is really mental illness. Now, if you look at the spectrum of people from the unhealthiest to the healthiest mentally, you'll find that at the very top, you have the happiest people with the highest self-esteem who are the most positive and outgoing. At the very bottom, you have the most negative and pessimistic people who often require drugs and hospitalization. Your job is to develop a positive mental attitude. Your job is to become thoroughly positive and constructive towards yourself and your possibilities and the world around you and the people in your life. And the way you do this is very much the same way you develop physical fitness. Now, if I were to say to you, if you go to a gym and you work out on a regular basis, an hour, hour and a half a day, and you do this every day for 30 days, and you match that with a proper diet, that you'll actually see a difference in yourself physically. Now, if I were to say that to you, you'd say, oh, of course, anybody knows that. If you worked out steadily for 30 days, you'd notice a difference. Well, it's the same thing with mental fitness. We know that you can't see the results of mental fitness the same way you can see physical fitness, but you can see the results of it. And mental fitness comes from following a specific exercise program. It comes from doing things in a certain way every single day. And it's much easier than going to a gym and sweating and working out. So what you need to do is you need to get onto a mental fitness program that enables you to become more and more strong, resilient, confident, positive, optimistic, and to develop a positive mental attitude. So I'm going to ask you to do this for me. I'm going to give you 7 steps, 7 things that you can do, 7 things that have been proven to work. What I'm going to ask you to do is that you practice these 7 steps for 21 days. The reason for this is it takes 21 days to develop a new habit pattern of any kind. If you work on a habit pattern and you practice it every day, you begin to develop new neural grooves in your brain that cause you to think and act more optimistically automatically. You get up in the morning feeling better. You are more positive toward the challenges you face during the day. You're more optimistic in the face of adversity. You start to become a more confident and optimistic person. And when you do, you'll find your whole life will open up around you like sunshine on a bright morning. Now, I've worked with psychologists for more than 25 years. I've studied psychology since I was a young person, and I've had teams of psychologists come to my courses. And what they've told me, and what I'm going to tell you, is that these are the most advanced techniques of behavioral modification that are taught in the very best universities today. But I'm going to teach them to you as very, very simple, powerful techniques that you can take and run with, use on yourself, and use with the people around you. There's 7 basic steps to mental fitness. If you practice all of these steps together, what will happen to you is incredible. But here's the first rule, and this is the rule that runs through everything, and it is this: remember that everything counts. This is the great rule of success. Everything helps or everything hurts. Everything counts. And your job is to remember that everything we talk about counts. It affects you one way or the other. And your job is to use every single one of these as often as you can. In 21 days, you won't even notice the difference. You'll be so astonished at yourself. Number 1 is positive self-talk. Positive self-talk has been getting very good press in the last little while. Positive self-talk means that you talk to yourself in a positive way. It means that you are optimistic in your conversation with yourself. What we have found is that 95% of your emotions, how you feel about yourself on a minute-to-minute basis, are determined by the way you talk to yourself. Now, the average person has about 1,500 words of dialogue running through their brain every minute. It runs at incredible speed. It's almost impossible. It's called stream of consciousness. It's like a river of consciousness. Your job is to deliberately interfere with that stream and make sure that your thoughts are on what you want and are off of the things that you don't want. We know also that there is a thing in cognitive psychology called explanatory style. Explanatory style has to do with how you explain things to yourself. We know that successful people, positive people, are people who explain things to themselves in a positive way. They say, well, that's an interesting situation, or, oh, that'll work out okay, or don't worry about it. Everything's going to happen for a good reason, and so on. Positive people are those who constantly take what is happening, and whereas negative people interpret them differently, explain them differently, positive people turn them around and explain them well. W. Clement Stone, one of the richest men in the world, said that one of the keys to his success was to look at every adversity and immediately say, that's good, and then to find something in it that was good. Find something in it that was good. So, the second part of positive self-talk is to control your inner dialogue, is to control what's happening inside you, and to be aware that the average person, if they're not careful, will have a tendency to be negative. You'll have a tendency to think about the things you worry about. You'll have a tendency to be skeptical. You'll have a tendency to be cynical. It's absolutely amazing that positive people today, who are basically people with high levels of mental health, are under attack by the negative people. And here's the key to positive self-talk. It's one of the most important parts of modern psychology, and it's the use of affirmations. Now, affirmations are positive statements that you make to yourself about yourself and your world. Remember, you become what you think about. What you repeat to yourself over and over again is accepted by your subconscious mind as a command. And there are 3 P's to affirmations. There are 3 P's to self-talk. First of all, it must be personal. That means all really good self-talk that programs your subconscious begins with the word I. I can, I am, I like myself, I can do it, I feel happy, I feel healthy, I feel terrific. Now the second P is it must be in the present tense. In other words, you don't say, I will quit smoking, I will earn a good living, I will be happy. You say, I am happy, I am a non-smoker, I feel terrific, I like myself. You say it today as though it were in the now. We know that your subconscious mind does not take in information that is couched in a future tense. And the third is that it's positive. So instead of saying, I'm not going to smoke anymore, you say, I am a non-smoker. We find again that the subconscious mind sorts out and deletes any negatives. So if you say something like, I am a non-smoker, which some people say, the subconscious mind takes out not and just simply records, I am a smoker, I am a smoker, and so on. Affirmations are the key. With affirmations, your potential as a person is unlimited. The discovery of affirmations and the development of affirmations as a science has been one of the greatest breakthrough areas in human potential. If I could give you one secret of success, it would be this. It is to talk about the things you want and refuse to talk about the things you don't want. It's to talk continually in terms of what you want to happen. It's to interpret things continually in terms of the way you want them to be. It's to continually control your inner dialogue so you're always saying the things to yourself and then to others that are consistent with the person you want to be and the life that you want to have. Remember, 95% of your feelings are determined by the way you talk to yourself. It's absolutely essential that you talk to yourself the way that you want to be. Now, the second part of mental fitness, the second key, is positive visualization. Positive visualization means that you control your mental pictures. We know from the various mental laws that we've discussed is that all improvement in your life begins with an improvement in your mental pictures. We know that because of the law of correspondence, that your outer world tends to be a mirror of your inner world. This means that what you see on your outside, what you see in your relationships, your health, your work, your customers, and so on, tends to be a result of the pictures you have inside. We also know that your self-image controls your performance. It is the way you see yourself and think about yourself inside determines how you act on a day-to-day basis. If you see yourself and think about yourself as an extraordinary person, if you see yourself as a success, if you see yourself as happy and positive and confident and in control, if you see yourself as a loving parent or spouse, you will act that way toward others. So therefore, all improvement in your life begins with an improvement in your mental pictures, with you consciously and deliberately selecting the pictures that you're going to allow your mind to dwell upon. And that word dwell is terribly important. When you dwell upon a picture, your subconscious mind, just as with affirmations, accepts the picture as a command and goes to work to bring that picture into your reality. It's the most phenomenal thing. Your subconscious mind controls your reticular activating system or your reticular cortex as well. Your reticular activating system is very interesting. It's a small part of your brain. It's like a switchboard in your brain that controls all incoming impulses. Let me give you an example. If you've ever thought that you're going to buy a red sports car, you send a signal to your brain that red sports cars are now important to you. Your reticular activating system suddenly activates all of your senses so that wherever you go, you see red sports cars everywhere. Every time you turn around, you see them turning the corner, you see them parked, you see them in parking lots, you see them in newspapers and magazines, you see them everywhere. If you begin to tell your brain that you intend to be a great success in your field, that you are going to move to the top, that you're going to be one of the most esteemed people in what you do, if you're going to make a lot of money, whatever it happens to be, this is accepted as a command. The reticular cortex switches on all these switches, and from then on you begin to see all kinds of possibilities that help you move toward achieving that goal. Why is it that successful people move so rapidly toward achieving their goals? It's very simple. It's because they're thinking all the time, and as a result of thinking about what they want, they see all kinds of opportunities around them to achieve that the average person doesn't even see, because the average person is so worried about how little money they have and how much their bills are and all the problems are, and the more they think about those things, the more they get them. So, with regard to positive visualization, see yourself as you desire. Remember we said earlier, see yourself enjoying the success that you want. See yourself as you desire. And what will happen is your subconscious mind will say, well, this must be a command. This must be what you want. So it goes to work and it coordinates your words, actions, thoughts, activities, emotions, and so on, so that they're consistent with achieving and bringing that mental picture into your reality. If you interview successful people, it's a very interesting thing. If you interview successful people and you ask them on a regular basis, what do you think about? What are you thinking about now? You find that successful people are always thinking constructive, positive, creative thoughts that help them to be more successful. And if you interview negative people who aren't doing very much with their lives, you ask them what are they thinking about. They're always thinking about negative, hurtful, destructive, angry, resentful, worried thoughts. And surprise, surprise, the more they think about them and worry about them, the more they draw them into their lives. Be careful. Your mind is very, very powerful. And finally, the third part of positive visualization is to feed your mind continually. Feed your mind continually. Feed your mind on a regular basis, the way you would feed your body with a special kind of foods. Feed your mind with pictures consistent with what you want. Just before you go to bed at night, visualize and see your ideal situation the coming day. See yourself performing at your best. See yourself living your ideal lifestyle. When you feed that picture into your mind just before you go to sleep, what happens is your subconscious and your superconscious goes to work on it all night long. Very, very powerful technique. One of the most powerful of all for success. Now, the next technique, number 3, is positive mental food. Just as we said, we're talking about mental food in a way, but just as we said before, that you become what you think about, if I were to say to you, oh, there's a remarkable discovery. Did you know that you become what you eat? That your food determines your physical health? If I were to say that to you, you'd say, oh, give me a break, Brian. Everybody knows you become what you eat. The problem is we just don't eat the things that we should. Positive mental food is exactly the same. You become what you think about most of the time. In other words, your whole life today, everything around you has been determined by what you think about most of the time. You've attracted this into your life. You've attracted your relationship. You've determined your income by what you think about most of the time. Now, if you think about positive, constructive, success-oriented, happy things, you start to have more of those in your life. If you think about movies and television and sports and wasting your time and socializing, well, you'll have a lot of those in your life, but you won't have anything else. Remember, whatever you think about most of the time crowds the other things out of your life. So, in becoming what you think about, what do you feed your mind on a regular basis? And this is not something that you are casual about. You must be very, very deliberate and feed your mind a diet of mental protein, of highly nutritious words, pictures, quotes, magazines, television, audio tapes, books, newspapers, and so on. The average person, when you look at what they read, the average person reads sensational, negativistic, violent garbage. In fact, they tried to publish a newspaper on several occasions that only had good news in it, and the newspaper failed. Do you know why it failed? It's because the great majority of people wouldn't buy a newspaper that did not have dreadful stories of dreadful things happening to innocent people. Your job is to ask yourself, when you look at a book, is this going to help you in some way? Let me ask you a question. What do you think would happen to you if you read a whole lot of horror books, or a whole lot of murder books, or a whole lot of violence books? What do you think would happen to you if you read these books all the time? Do you think it would affect your mind? You bet your bippy it would affect your mind. What do successful people read? They read books that are positive and constructive and success-oriented and uplifting and educational and motivational. If you read all the negative stories in newspapers day after day after day, you get the idea, by the way, that our whole society is falling apart. If you read negative stories in magazines, you get the same thing. It's interesting with regard to newspapers and the economy. One of the things we found is that newspapers always put the most negative spin on everything. Back in the 80s, they tracked news stories. In 1982, when the entire economy was in the ditch, interest rates were 21%, unemployment was 11%, companies were going bankrupt everywhere. Do you know what happened? The number of negative news stories on the economy were 4-to-1, 4 negative for 1 positive. 1986, the economy was booming. The world was standing impressed by the beauty of the American economy. Jobs were being created everywhere, and the number of negative news stories on the economy moved up to 7-to-1, 7 negative for every 1 positive. Watch radio, television, audio tapes. The things that you feed into your mind have such an enormous impact on your mind. Make sure that what you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're hearing is consistent with what you want to accomplish. Now, the fourth part of mental programming, the fourth part is positive people. We know this. is that people account for about 85% of your happiness and unhappiness in life. And extensive studies at Harvard came up with an expression called your reference group. Now, your reference group are the people that you think yourself to be like. When you're growing up, your first reference group is your family, then it's your school, and then you grow up and you join clubs and associates, and sometimes you go to church, or eventually you join a political party, or you join a career. And each time, the people in that field are your reference group. You have to think about this question. What people do you most identify with? What people do you most consider yourself to be like, to be one of? They're like me, I'm like them. What do we know about high-performing men and women? Is that their reference group from a very early age are the most successful people in their field. They're the most admirable people. They're the most positive people. They're the kind of people that they admire and want to be like. What is your reference group? Who do you socialize with? Who do you go for lunch with? Who do you go out for dinner with? Who do you like to read about, talk about? Who is your reference group? Because it will determine your life and your success as much as anything else. And your reference group has got to be winners. Get around winners. Get around positive people. Get around people who are goal-oriented. Get around people who are going somewhere with their life. Get around people who talk, as they say in the Western song, from whom never is heard a discouraging word. And get away from losers. Do you know one of the primary reasons why people lose in life is because they're either brought up by negative people or they associate with losers when they become adults? What we have found is this. You and I have what is called a chameleon response to relationships. We have a tendency to adopt the words, the actions, the behaviors, the mannerisms, the dress, even the slang of the people that we associate with most of the time. If we're not very careful, we'll take on their coloring like a chameleon, and we become just like them. I can tell you dozens of stories of men and women who just switched reference groups and their whole life changed. They went from company A to company B, and in company A they never accomplished anything, and in company B they became superstars. People that went from bad relationships to good relationships, and in a bad relationship, they were never happy or successful, and in the good relationship, they accomplished wonderful things. Get away from negative people. Get around positive people. Associate with winners in your life. Now, the fifth part is positive training and development. Positive training and development is a part of your physical fitness program. We know that learning today is the key to the future. That whatever you know today, it's becoming obsolete at a rapid rate. We also know that there's a direct relationship between competence, how well you do what you do, and self-esteem. Self-esteem, how much you like yourself, how much you respect yourself, how good you feel about yourself, and so on, is the better you get at doing the important things in your life, the happier you are about yourself. The happier you are about yourself, the more positive you are. The more positive you are, the more people like you. The more people like you, the more they want to work with you and help you and assist you. What we have found is that in life, most of your success is going to come from other people. Most of your success is going to come from someone who helps you. And people like to help other people who are good at what they do and who are pleasant and easy to get along with. So, here are the keys to positive training and development. Read on a regular basis. Read an hour a day. 30 to 60 minutes every day will make you one of the great authorities in your field in a couple of years. Listen to educational and uplifting audio cassettes in your car. Turn driving time into learning time. The average person spends 500 to 1,000 hours a year in their car. And if you turn that driving time into learning time, you will become one of the most successful and best paid people in your society. And third, take every course that you possibly can. The future depends upon formal education, professional training courses, public seminars. Remember this, continuous learning is the key to the future. In fact, the only real skill that will count in the future when all knowledge and skills are becoming obsolete is the ability to learn new things at a rapid rate. So dedicate yourself to lifelong, continuous personal improvement. By doing that, the things that you will accomplish will be amazing. Number 6 is positive health habits. Positive health habits in terms of success are absolutely critical. Positive health habits mean that you give a lot of thought to how good you feel on a regular basis, because we know that it's energy and dynamism that count today. Energy and dynamism translate into human magnetism. They translate into a positive mental attitude. And it's not possible for you to be positive if you're tired or burnt out, if you're worn out, if you didn't get enough sleep. So here's what we know about foods. Is number 1 is you should be eating healthy foods and a healthy diet. We know more today about how to eat great foods, how to have high levels of energy than we ever have before. And it's pretty simple. We'll go into this at length in other programs, but first of all, eat lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, lots of whole grain products. Second of all, stop eating fats, sugars, and salts. Third of all, drink lots of water. And fourth of all, get lots of exercise. Walk, get onto an aerobic exercise program. Regular rest and recreation are absolutely critical to having high levels of physical energy, which gives you the optimism and confidence to be able to bounce when you face the adversities of daily life rather than breaking. Now, the seventh key to mental fitness is positive action. Remember, everything counts, and positive action is the key. There's lots of people who read all the books and listen to all the tapes and make all the plans and set all the goals, and they don't do anything. So number 7, the final point, well, you don't even need a number, is positive action. That means get going, get busy, move fast. Positive action gives you energy. It gives you energy, and it gives you enthusiasm. And the faster you move, the more energy you have. The faster you move, the better you get. The faster you move, the more enthusiasm you have. The faster you move, the more you improve. The faster you move, the more you feel in control of your life. We call this a sense of urgency. And there are many qualities that you can develop to be successful, but a sense of urgency is possessed by less than 2% of the population. These are the people who are almost magnets for opportunities, because today the primary source of value in our society is time. What does that mean? It means that people are impatient today, and we will always give greater credits for competence and ability to a person who does things for us fast rather than a person who does things for us slowly. We have found that every company and every individual who succeeds has developed a bias for action. A bias for action means that they get into a fast tempo. They do things quicker. They move faster. They get busy. They get going. If they get a phone call, they get back. If they get a lead, they move on it fast. W. Clement Stone, whom I've referred to in the past, has a wonderful little ditty which he continually teaches, even though he's in his late 80s. And he used to teach it to all the people in his combined insurance companies of America. He would have everybody stand up every morning and recite this affirmation 50 times every single morning. And the affirmation is, do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. I do it now. I get on with it now. Do it now. Do you know how rare it is to find a person who does it now? Do you know how rare it is to find a person who, when you give them a job, will do it quickly? But if you do it now, and if you practice the others, if you remember that everything counts, if you feed your mind with positive thoughts and positive pictures, if you get around positive people and use positive training and development, if you practice positive health habits and eat the right foods, and if you make a habit every single day of doing the most important things and doing them now, getting on with them, getting going, doing it fast, you'll open up doors of opportunity that today you may not even see. You will attract into your life people and circumstances and opportunities to achieve your goals that you may never have accomplished before. And in 21 days of following this plan, you'll become a positive, optimistic, forceful, controlled, cheerful person with a positive mental attitude and the ability to accomplish anything.
This is the end of this disc. The program continues on the next CD.